Governor, you were the governor here in the state of Georgia for 8 years. Your term recently ended.
Yes.
Why did you decide to go into international business instead of going into another political office or something different?
Well, I always considered myself a Jeffersonian in the fact that I think you come out and serve publicly for a time.
Mm-hmm.
My heart has always been in business,
Mm-hmm.
and I had decided early on when the people honored me with serving as governor for 8 years, and my intentions were to go
Mm-hmm.
back to the private sector. But actually, there are a lot of similarities. What we were trying to do from a public perspective of
Mm-hmm.
facilitating the creation of jobs,
Mm-hmm.
we're actually going to do that from the private sector.
Right.
Governments don't really create jobs other than the people they hire,
Mm-hmm.
but they try to create the environment where jobs are produced.
Mm-hmm.
And what we want to do is take the things that we've learned and help the private sector, small and mid-sized companies understand there's a great and growing world out there with a lot of demand for U.S. products.
The first time we met was actually in China when Delta
Yeah.
launched the inaugural nonstop to Shanghai. How has your outlook for international business changed as you've represented the state, I think, in 25 countries all around the world?
It's changed tremendously, and think about it, I'm a product of the 50s. I grew up in Middle Georgia in the 1950s,
Mm-hmm.
and we were very nationalistic. We didn't think much existed outside of our world,
Right.
either local, state, or the United States. So, but my eyes have been opened, obviously, and I think the demographic and the macroeconomic changes that we've seen over the last 20 to 30 years are tremendous, but they're insidious, and I don't think many people in the U.S. have recognized that. We think the real consumption and the growth of consumption will be in these emerging economies that we see developing around the world. There's more affluence, more middle-income consumers there, and we think the good news is I'm convinced that Americans and Georgians continue to make quality products that will have demand worldwide.
Right. You covered a lot of ground in 8 years. I mean, I think 2,000 companies announced expansions or expanded here. What would you characterize as your greatest achievement in the international realm as governor?
Well, again, I think providing a state with solid and consistent regulatory policy, good tax policy, good decision making, they could get answers. And I think that's typically what businesses want. Business people are good about either taking yes or taking no, but they need answers, and they need it very quickly. The bureaucratic snafus that happen are just painful to them, and sometimes they go away or go to other places. So we try to facilitate their business here by first making them welcome. Business is really all about personal relationships. And that's the other thing I gained from office is that there are a lot of personal relationships around the world that want to do business here in Georgia. And we think there are a lot of companies in Georgia, once they discover this great demand out there, are going to want to do business around the world.
How will your status as a former governor open doors in places like Asia?
Well, I think what we discovered is that people in elected office or people in public office in most of the world are viewed differently than they are in the United States. In our democratic republic, we elect, the ballot box always wins, and so therefore we have public officials. We respect them and we honor them, but in most of the world, business and government are tied much more intricately than they are here. Many in somewhat semi-controlled environments, and governments have a lot to do and say about what businesses do, much more so than here in the U.S. And that's what we found. So relationships are all important. The fact also is that most of the world reveres those who are in office or those who have been in office more than we do. So certainly being a former governor carries a certain level of stature that usually doesn't dissipate when you go globally.
Right. How Georgia-focused will this venture be?
Well, again, it'll be Georgia-focused because that's what we know right now. But obviously, we're not limiting our efforts exclusively to Georgia. But we know the people here, we know the companies here. The other thing, there are some really infrastructure advantages that Georgia has, which we sold the 8 years we were in office with the infrastructure of logistics and transportation, which is a huge part of global trading. The Port of Savannah, our road and rail network, Hartsfield International, and those are critical and vital to worldwide trade.
Right.
So we're going to let the market dictate where we go and the customers that we do business with. But obviously, we are very interested in our international friends. Atlanta and Georgia has a great community of international friends here, business people who are interested in seeing their relatives and their businesses in their home countries do well here.
Right. And Georgia is an agricultural state, and obviously that's your background. How well equipped are Georgia farmers to send their products around the world? I know we have chicken feet going to China and other interesting products. And what will your new company do to help facilitate those trade links?
Well, obviously, my background in agriculture and agribusiness and logistics is a good nexus for global trading, and I look forward to that. But the pecan farmers of Georgia are discovering there's a great worldwide market out there. The Chinese have discovered pecans, and they love them. And so you have many Georgia pecan farmers exporting that. Right. The grain markets have been more of a consolidated market where the great multinationals have consolidated that. We think that will deconsolidate too with containerization and be able to go directly to mills worldwide that may need smaller amounts.
Right.